Hello everybody, welcome back to my Pokemon review series, and in this episode we are going to be going over the Pinsir. Now, Pinsir is an interesting Pokemon. It's pretty difficult to catch because it is one of those single stage Pokemon with the 16 pips, but it's got some interesting uses. Now, it's of the dozing specialty. I believe that's typical of bugs. I didn't double check that before this video. Let's see, is that typical? Yeah, it is. So, typical of bugs, speed dozing type. So that's where he is. Ingredient specialty. Now, the big thing about ingredient specialists is their speed, their ingredient rate, and their ingredient list. Now, he does have a 3.1% proc rate, which is, or for main skill proc rate, which is decent. It's not a terrible one. With a speed of 40 minutes, you'll actually be seeing that skill proc a bit more than on some other ingredient specialists, but it's the charge strength S fixed, which is one of the weakest skills for an ingredient specialist to have. So he's not really gaining much from his skill. But as for ingredients, he's got a 21.6% ingredient rate with that 40-minute speed. That's pretty fast for that's decently fast. It's not as fast as the Raichu or the Gengar, but it's decently fast, especially for having a proc rate this high. And something else that's kind of interesting about the Pinsir is its ingredient list. Now, it's got honey, apples, and sausage. Now, this sausage is just a troll ingredient. You do not want the sausage on the Pinsir. I'm going to say that outright. You don't want the C ingredient for this guy. But as for the other ingredients, there is some interesting ideas. If we look at the ingredients and the dishes across here, especially in the desserts category, Pinsir is great for covering some of these desserts, especially the Jigglypuff's Fruity Flan. Now, if you get Pinsir, a Delibird, and something that can make some milk, doesn't even need to be an ingredient specialist, then you can pretty easily make this Fruity Flan, which is one of the strongest meals in the game. So there's some synergy there, but you need to have the right list. Now, it takes honey to apples in a 2-to-1 ratio for that meal. Meanwhile, the honey to apples in this one, the best way you're going to get that is the ABA list at a 9-to-5 ratio, which is pretty close. Not perfect. You'll get a little more apples than what you need, but overall, the production is going to be about there. So, if you just get the right sub-skills in nature, then you'll make plenty of honey, plenty of apples for that Fruity Flan. Now, the big thing about Pinsir, though, is just how difficult he is to hunt. Being the single-stage mon and only existing at 2 islands, it's going to be pretty difficult to hunt a Pinsir. It's going to be pretty difficult to collect a lot of candies for the Pinsir, because not that many people send candies for it, because he is kind of a more niche pick. As for the strength of its various procs, if we check out the level 60 evaluation here, we can see that the sausage actually is the highest value proc of the options, but it's got such little synergy that you still don't want it. So then, of the more significant ones, the Mono Honey is the highest value, which Mono Honey can go a long way, but it can be covered by the Venusaur pretty easily. So I think if you're going to be searching for a Pinsir, I don't think you should really be looking for that Mono Honey, because unless you have your Venusaur doing something else, because it's just going to be easier to get the Mono Honey build on the Venusaur. So having it on the Pinsir is going to be pretty difficult to get. And if you want to get the Pinsir and you really want to hunt the Pinsir and use it well, you want it to have its own identity separate from the Venusaur. And where the Pinsir shines in comparison to the Venusaur is that it can make this Fruity Flan pretty consistently. So it's got the Bug Berry. I forgot to mention that. Weakest berry type in the game, tied with Flying. So you're not really getting any value from its berries, despite a decent speed for an ingredient specialist. I also forgot to mention, it's got an inventory of 24, which that is actually pretty high. That's good on an ingredient specialist. The problem is the Pinsir doesn't evolve, so he's stuck at 24 unless you have inventory sub skills, or you sleep with him for enough time. which you can get that up to 32, which is pretty significant. So, but if you're getting this 8 apple proc, then it's going to be pretty rare. I guess you could also do the AAB list. ABA and AAB also... Actually, no, that does not work. Because then that'd be about a 1-to-1 ratio, which means you're producing way more apples than what you would need. So you really want the ABA for that proper ratio for this meal. And that's really the only one that uses the apples and the honey. But it's a very strong one, so it's a good combo. The Calm Mind Fruit Salad is also pretty good. But that one takes more apples than honey. So I guess if you flipped this and had the AAB, then you'd have a 1-to-1 ratio almost. It'd technically be 7 to 8. That would get closer to what this Calm Mind Fruit Salad is targeting. So it's got some flexibility, some unique things that it can do. Also, the Lovely Kiss Smoothie. Man, I can't believe I forgot about some of these other meals. So yeah, there's a lot of options. And I think that is kind of an underrated Pokemon. I don't think people are kind of realizing that. The biggest problem with it is that people don't want to hunt it. Because what it can do, other things can typically... You can find a better one of something else to do a similar job with a different meal faster than you'll ever find a good enough version of Pinsir. But if you happen to come across a good one, if they're hungry, maybe throw a biscuit. Anyway, I hope you learned something about the Pinsir. And if you want one, I hope you learn how to hunt it. Thank you.